I love a good fish out of water story, and I think it's why I am gonna always love the Back to the Future movies. All three of them. You know, Marty McFly is constantly thrown into a different era, and he has got to figure out how to save the day while simultaneously trying to figure out how the world works. I think somebody needs to do like a supercut of all of the times that Marty is like freaking out. I think that was worth the time. Thank you, Internet. I love seeing what people do when they're forced to face the unfamiliar. You know, like when they're taken out of what they knew or what they're used to or what they're known for, and they're put out of place. They're sort of made the glitch, right? When they realize that they are an anomaly in their current context. But have you ever noticed that the best fish out of water stories don't just change the fish, it changes the water. You see, there's a different that is actually just more of the same, right? You know, there's different just like everybody else. There's different just for the sake of being different. And then there's different that moves the world around. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the free thinkers and the creators and the sages among us. And it's not just people who fly when everybody else feels stuck, but it's also the men and women in your life who seem grounded when everybody else is being blown about by the way the world is happening around them. See, I think that we could all get really, really excited about being different in the sense of being exceptional. As if there's something that you were created to be and the world around you is so desperate for it, so hungry for it. We're here today because, frankly, people have stood out before we got here. You know, people who have put themselves in harm's way, or people who were misunderstood, or people who risked everything just so that they could speak up or stand up when it frankly would have been easier for them to hide. And that's how the world changes. That is how the future is written. So today, if you feel out of place, whether you feel like it's just how you're wired or a situation that you found yourself in, if you feel underqualified for your context, if you feel sort of thrust into circumstances without some frame of reference, maybe what God is doing is asking you to stare into this discomfort and into this disruption and decide what you are gonna do about it. You know, one of my favorite fish out of water stories is actually one of the most studied memoirs of all time, like across all disciplines, across all religions, and it is the life of a Jewish man named Daniel. Now, if you have ever heard of Daniel at all, you've heard about a lion's den, right? But there is so much more to his life. And I actually want to spend the next few weeks with this guy because he was an anomaly. He wrote about his life way back in 536 BC. And the reason we know that is from the first line of his memoir. It's in Daniel chapter 1, verse 1. It says, during the 3rd year of King Jehoiakim's reign in Judah, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The Lord gave him victory over King Jehoiakim of Judah. And this places it in history for us. The 3rd year of Jehoiakim's reign, history and archaeology date that to 605 BC. This actually happened on terra firma sometime in a calendar long, long before you and I lived. Jehoiakim, just to give you some context, was appointed to lead part of the Hebrew people, and they were living in an area that was called Judah at the time, but under Egyptian authority. And he was placed into that authority in 608 BC, but because right now we calendar those years backwards, 3 years later was 605 BC, and the Battle of Carchemish happened. Babylon invaded, usurped Egypt's hold as Babylon was becoming the new world power. Now, Daniel was taken captive along with a lot of members of his community and deported to Babylon, where he wrote about his experience for the benefit of the other captives. And I want us to pay attention to that. The reason that's important is because the people who were reading this were still exiles when Daniel died. You know, they didn't get the escape that they probably wanted. But just because they were out of place and probably would end their days out of place doesn't mean that their lives had to be wasted. Now, he frames the whole experience, this exile experience, in a really, really interesting way. I think it's fascinating that these scriptures, which people have for generations used to introduce people to a God that you are supposed to trust. tell us that this exile was God's fault. Now, what's going to get revealed in the next message that we're going to drop next week is how God took a people who were living safe and frankly living selfish and living comfortable and threw them into darkness and then lit them up. But I want to focus on how Daniel got started. In Daniel chapter 1, verse 3, here's what he writes. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, his chief of staff, to bring to the palace some of the young men of Judah's royal family and then other noble families who had been brought to Babylon as captives. And the king said, select only strong and healthy and good-looking young men, he said. I want you to make sure that they are well-versed in every branch of learning. They're gifted with knowledge and good judgment and are suited to serve in the royal palace. Train these young men in the language and literature of Babylon. The king assigned them a daily ration of food and wine from his own kitchens, and they were to be trained for 3 years, and then they would enter the royal service. Alexander the Great did a very similar thing when he started to conquer different cultures. And what this idea is to take promising people, for the most part men back then, promising young men, from these conquered cultures, and then let them compete for jobs in your nation. Here's how Daniel describes it in Daniel chapter 1, starting in verse 19, to jump to the end of this part of Daniel's story. No one impressed him, that's the king, as much as Daniel and then his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the royal service, and whenever the king consulted them in any matter requiring wisdom and balanced judgment, listen, he found them 10 times more capable than any of the magicians and enchanters in his entire kingdom. And those are the kinds of people the king would normally go to for consultation. But he just got more out of Daniel and his friends. And what this tells us is that these fish out of water gained prominence not because they were teachers' pets, not because they played along, not because they just fell right in with the way everybody was doing things and thinking the way everybody was thinking. The language here seems to describe people that, like, man, if you are around them, life is just profoundly better. In other words, Babylon is better because of people like Daniel. Now, we're going to learn over the next few messages that Daniel did not gain this influence just by playing along or keeping out of trouble. He lived a life that transcended ordinary. He was a glitch. And it made him seem really odd, often. But listen, this is the point of the whole series. You must be different if you expect to make a difference. You must be willing to be different if you expect to make a difference. So many people today wish they were like someone else. So many people today are taking so many cues from the way somebody else is living their lives. And I think it's ignoring the unique contribution that you are meant to make in the world. We are all anomalies. God has created you to be unique. Daniel was exiled out of his comfort zone, but he chose to stay unique. You know, we're dropping this message during Black History Month, and I can't help but be reminded of another incredible anomaly. There's this kind of easy to miss little park in downtown Los Angeles where Radius is based out of, and it has a memorial wall erected to Bridget Biddy Mason. And Bridget Biddy was an enslaved Black woman who was brought to Southern California in 1851, all the way from Mississippi. And she probably came mostly on foot. Once she got here, she petitioned for her freedom, and she won. And she turned her midwifery skills and some of her medical skills into a career in the 1850s, acquiring wealth and then using that wealth for the sake of the needy in Los Angeles. She actually helped start both the first Black church in Los Angeles and the first elementary school. She didn't just change lives because she was thrust into a different place. Biddy was different. Now, I don't know what you know about Jesus, but I think most people would agree he was definitely an anomaly. And anyone who followed him, and anyone who follows him today, those people are meant to be sort of on that same unconventional path. Jesus actually prayed this for us in John 17, verse 14. He prays, I have given them your word. God, I've given them your vision for life. And the world hates them because they don't belong to the world, just as I don't belong to the world. I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but to keep them safe from the evil one, from destruction, from deceit. They do not belong to this world any more than I do. Make them holy by your truth. And holy there just literally means different on purpose. That's what that means. Jesus goes on to pray, teach them your word, which is truth. Teach them what's true in an age when they would probably be easily deceived. And just as you sent me into this world, listen, I am sending them into the world. And I give myself as a holy sacrifice, a very different kind of sacrifice for them, so they can be made holy by your truth. They can live differently. Now, I'd agree that religious people are often not the good kind of different. You know, sometimes, I'll be honest, they're crazy. You know, sometimes they're just bizarre. And some people are just flat out judgmental in the name of Jesus. Some people are even dangerous. But I hope it's encouraging to you and maybe clarifying to you to find out that none of that kind of different is what Jesus wants for you or for me. Not even close. You know, growing up in Christian circles, I grew up going to church and going to Sunday school. I heard a popular slogan, and maybe you've heard it before if you've got that similar background, and that slogan was, be in, but not of. Be in the world, but not of the world. And we got that from Jesus' prayer here in John's biography of Jesus. But when I was young, I got the impression that what that meant was, man, it is really unfortunate that we happen to be in Babylon, so let's just make sure that none of this gets on us, all right? We're in it, but let's not be of it, okay? And the direction that that slogan encourages us to live is sort of away from where we are or detached from where we are. But I want us to notice something. In Jesus' mind, to not be of this place isn't the destination. It's actually the origin story. And then what he envisions is a people who are not of this place being sent into ordinary life. This is so crucial. Listen, maybe what we need to do is to revise that slogan. Instead of saying that we are supposed to be in the world but not of the world, instead it'd be more helpful and frankly more accurate to say we are not of this world, but we are into this world. We are sent into this ordinary life to live differently so that we can make a difference, that our lives aren't an act of opposition to the world around us, but they are an offering for the world around us. They are this profound expression of love and of strength and of unorthodox wisdom and stability and peace and joy in the midst of chaos and disappointment. Listen, you are going to be out of place. But isn't that what ordinary needs? Jesus claimed over and over again to be a particular kind of different. Earlier in John's biography, he quotes Jesus saying, "While I am here in this world, I am the light of the world." Light, like something that helps things grow, or something that helps people see, or something that we all want more of. And then later, Jesus goes on to describe you and me, followers of Jesus, as light in the world. In other words, how can we be different in a way that our radius benefits the most? What if it was like, man, I don't believe what she believes, but having her on the team has made a profound impact. Like, I'm not so sure I believe what he believes, but he is the best neighbor I have ever had. I don't know if I can believe the same thing that she believes, but she is one of the only people who I can trust with my real self. So what kind of different really makes a difference? You certainly have your unique story and your unique personality and your unique talent, but over the next few weeks, I want to uncover universal differences that create the kind of anomalies that God uses to change the world. Every week, I'm going to be dropping a brand new message outlining ways that Daniel was that kind of light for the world. Like so many people since him and just like so many people that the world still needs today. Now, if you're watching this after we've released the whole series, you can, of course, check out all of the Anomaly messages on demand through our YouTube channel. But also, let me just encourage you right now, today, to take a bold step. Radius has groups for everyone to grow spiritually and relationally and to become the kind of different that God uses in the world. But today what I want to do is quickly highlight one of those opportunities that we have that have helped men make a huge difference in their lives and in the world around them.
This was advertised as being unlike any other men's ministry.
The foundation of Unravel is universal. It's biblical. I think there's something in there for every man on any journey.
Unravel is men getting together.
By the time I finished Unravel, I felt like a man. I felt like I had leveled up.
I legitimately longed for something deeper. Unravel did such an incredible job of pushing you to organize your life. That way you can make time for something that's really crucially important.
My life is most certainly better now because I gained that wisdom and found those tools that I use to navigate my life now.
I felt like a much more intentional, serious person.
I would say that I'm a better husband now. For more info and to sign up, go to radius.church.
So let me close with this idea. If you're going to make a difference in your marriage and in your work and in your kids' lives that you are really created to make, then you are going to have to find the courage to be different. Light doesn't just join the darkness. Light displaces it, like a solid dropped into a liquid. One of those things has to move the other. Light isn't just less dark. Light isn't just a different shade. Light is the presence of something that dark does not have. Light is something that dark is not. And we want to help you discover that. But more importantly, I think God wants to do this work in your life for the sake of the world around you, for the sake of your radius. So join us next time.
Thank you for joining us this week. Don't forget to check out a small group at radius.church/groups. And if you're new, we want to meet and support you. Just go to radius.church and click the I'm New button so we can have someone reach out to you, get you your free ebook, and help you discover what God's purpose is for you in your life. No matter where you are on your spiritual journey, Radius is here to help. Bye, everyone.